the clinking of glasses, laughter echoing through the dining room. Then silence. Barbara, my mother-in-law, smirked over her wine glass, her eyes scanning me from head to toe like I was something she found on the bottom of her shoe. "Some women just aren't built for beauty, dear," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "But at least you're useful." The table erupted in laughter. Even Colin, my husband, chuckled softly beside me. My hand tightened around my fork until my knuckles turned white. My throat burned with words I couldn't say. But I smiled. That's what I always did. I smiled through every insult, every cruel joke, every moment they made me feel small. That smile was my crime. It made them think I didn't feel the knife twisting deeper each time. I looked down at my plate, forcing myself to chew food that tasted like dust. This was supposed to be a family dinner. Instead, it felt like a public execution. I excused myself quietly, mumbling something about needing the restroom. No one noticed. They were too busy laughing at another joke Barbara made about someone's outfit. I locked the bathroom door and gripped the sink, staring at my reflection. Red eyes. Trembling lips. A face I barely recognized anymore. I whispered to the mirror, maybe she's right. The words felt like poison. I had said them before, late at night when Colin was asleep and I was alone with my thoughts. Maybe I wasn't pretty enough. Maybe I didn't belong in this family. Maybe I was just the plain girl who got lucky. My chest tightened as tears threatened to spill. But I couldn't cry. Not here. Not where they could hear me. I splashed cold water on my face and took 3 deep breaths. Then I painted that smile back on and returned to the table. No one asked if I was okay. They never did. My name is Haley. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a marketing assistant in Chicago. I met Colin at a company event 2 years ago. He was charming, confident, and came from a wealthy family that owned half the real estate in the suburbs. When he proposed after 6 months, I thought I was living a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't have mothers-in-law like Barbara. She runs a small but prestigious fashion charity in the city. Everyone knows her name. She's elegant, powerful, and absolutely terrifying. From the moment Colin introduced us, I knew she didn't approve. She looked at me the way people look at clearance items at a thrift store. I wasn't from money. I didn't go to the right schools. I didn't look like the women in her circle, the ones with designer handbags and perfect cheekbones. I was just Haley, the girl who wore Target dresses and did her own makeup. And that was my first mistake. Barbara's attacks were never direct. She was too smart for that. Instead, she used compliments that cut like razors. "You have such a sweet face, dear. Very approachable." Translation: plain. "I love how you don't care what people think about your appearance." Translation: you should. At dinner parties, she introduced me to her friends with a tight smile. "This is Haley, Colin's wife. She's the plain one with the big heart." People laughed politely, but I saw the pity in their eyes. Colin never defended me. He'd squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "She's just like that. Don't take it personally." But how could I not? Every word she said was designed to remind me I didn't belong. And the worst part? She was winning. I started doubting everything about myself. My clothes. My hair. My worth. I became quieter at gatherings, shrinking into the background where I couldn't be seen or judged. One night, Barbara gifted me a dress. It came in a beautiful box with tissue paper and a handwritten note that said, "For special occasions." I opened it alone in my bedroom, holding up the elegant designer gown. It was stunning. For a moment, I felt hopeful. Maybe she was finally warming up to me. Then I checked the size. It was one size too small. I tried it on anyway, sucking in my stomach and struggling with the zipper. It wouldn't close. I stood in front of the mirror, tears streaming down my face as Barbara's voice echoed in my head. "Not everyone can pull off designer, dear." I collapsed on the floor, still wearing the dress that wouldn't fit. I wasn't crying because I believed her words. I was crying because no one in that house ever defended me. Not Colin. Not his siblings. No one. I was completely alone. After that night, something inside me changed. I stopped trying to please Barbara. I stopped attending every family dinner and making excuses when I missed events. I pulled away emotionally, building walls around myself. Barbara noticed immediately. She started pushing harder, testing my boundaries. She'd call me at work with passive-aggressive questions. Are you coming to brunch, or are you too busy again? When I did show up, she'd make snide comments about my absence. Oh, look who decided to join us. Colin started accusing me of being difficult. You're too sensitive, he said one night after another argument. She's my mother. She's just trying to help you fit in. Fit in. As if I was a puzzle piece that didn't belong. I realized then that I was fighting a losing battle. No matter what I did, I would never be enough for Barbara. And Colin would never choose me over her. I was alone in this house, surrounded by people who didn't see me. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon at a cafe near my office. I was sitting alone, scrolling through my phone and sipping coffee, when a man approached my table. He was tall, maybe in his 30s, with a camera bag slung over his shoulder. Excuse me, he said with a friendly smile. I'm Eli. I'm a photographer working on a diversity campaign for an up-and-coming brand. I know this sounds strange, but your look is exactly what we're searching for. You have something undeniably striking. I stared at him, convinced this was a prank. Me? Striking? I laughed nervously. I think you have the wrong person. But Eli didn't leave. He pulled out his card and placed it on the table. I'm serious. We're looking for real women with natural beauty. No filters, no fake perfection. Just authenticity. If you're interested, give me a call. Then he walked away, leaving me holding his card and wondering if this was real or just another cruel joke the universe was playing on me. For 3 days, I stared at that card. I didn't tell Colin or Barbara. I barely told myself. Part of me wanted to throw it away and forget the whole thing. But another part, the part that was tired of being invisible, whispered, what if? On Friday, I called Eli. My hands shook as I dialed. Hello. His voice was warm. Hi, it's Haley. From the cafe. Haley. I'm so glad you called. Are you interested in doing a test shoot? I hesitated. I've never modeled before. That's exactly why you're perfect, he said. We scheduled a session for the following week. I told Colin I was meeting a friend. I told Barbara nothing. The morning of the shoot, I almost canceled 5 times. But something pushed me forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was desperation. When I arrived at Eli's studio, he greeted me with genuine excitement. Let's show the world who you really are, he said. And for the first time in months, I believe someone actually wanted to see me. Barbara's birthday party arrived like a storm I couldn't avoid. The house was decorated with white roses and gold ribbons. Guests filled every room, dressed in expensive clothes and fake smiles. I wore a simple black dress, knowing I'd be judged no matter what. Barbara held court in the center of the living room, opening gifts with exaggerated delight. When she got to mine, a tasteful scarf I'd saved up for, she smiled tightly. How thoughtful. Then she handed me a small wrapped box. And this is for you, dear. Inside was a gym membership card. The room went silent for a heartbeat. Then Barbara laughed. Just trying to help you tone up a bit. Someone has to think of these things. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I smiled, my face frozen in that familiar mask. Thanks for thinking of me, I said quietly. Barbara smirked. Someone has to. This time, though, the humiliation didn't break me. Something had shifted. I wasn't the same woman anymore. 2 weeks later, my phone rang while I was at work. It was Eli. Haley, you need to sit down for this. My heart pounded. What happened? Your photos got picked up. A high-end European brand is launching in the US, and they want you for their test campaign. I couldn't breathe. What? They loved your look. Called it fresh and timeless. They want to fly you to New York next month for the official shoot. Tears filled my eyes. I covered my mouth to keep from sobbing in my cubicle. Are you serious? Dead serious. Haley, this is huge. This brand doesn't work with just anyone. After we hung up, I sat staring at my desk for 20 minutes. Me. They wanted me. Not someone prettier or thinner or more polished. Me. For the first time since I'd met Barbara, I felt like maybe I wasn't the problem. Maybe I'd just been looking in the wrong mirrors. I didn't tell anyone about New York. Instead, I prepared in secret. I watched makeup tutorials on YouTube. I practiced posing in front of my bedroom mirror when Colin was at work. I learned about skincare routines and how to stand with confidence. This wasn't about vanity. It was about reclaiming something Barbara had taken from me. My sense of self. Every morning, I woke up earlier to work on myself. Not to become someone else, but to find the version of me that had been buried under years of insults. I started walking differently. Shoulders back. Head high. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. Colin noticed, but didn't ask questions. Barbara made comments about my new attitude, but I didn't engage. Let her wonder. I was done explaining myself to people who never listened. The woman in the mirror was changing. Not her face or body, but her eyes. They were no longer filled with doubt. They were filled with purpose. The flight to New York felt surreal. I'd never been on a plane alone before. As the city skyline came into view, my stomach twisted with nerves. What if I failed? What if they realized they'd made a mistake? At the studio, the creative team greeted me warmly. The makeup artist kept my look natural. "We want the real you," she said. When I stepped in front of the camera, I froze. Eli was there, guiding me gently. "Just be yourself, Haley. That's all we need." I thought about every time Barbara made me feel small. Every time Colin stayed silent. Every time I looked in the mirror and hated what I saw. Then I took a deep breath and let it all go. The shoot lasted 4 hours. By the end, the creative director pulled me aside. "You've got something special," he said. "Something timeless." Tears filled my eyes, but this time they were different. They were tears of relief. Someone finally saw me. Not as useful or plain or too sensitive. Just as me. And that was enough. When I returned home, Barbara was waiting. "How was your little trip?" she asked, her tone dripping with mockery. "Fine," I said simply. "Where did you go?" "Just visiting a friend." She studied me suspiciously, like she knew I was hiding something. But I didn't offer more. For once, I didn't feel the need to explain myself or seek her approval. Colin asked questions too, but I kept my answers vague. I wasn't ready to share this part of my life with people who had spent so long making me feel worthless. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a shift. Barbara's words still came, sharp and cutting, but they didn't land the same way. It was like I'd built armor she couldn't penetrate. She sensed it too. Her attacks became more frequent, more desperate. But I remained calm, unmoved. Her power was fading. And somewhere deep down, I think she knew it. The balance between us was changing, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. It was a cold afternoon in late October when I saw it. I was walking past a boutique window downtown, carrying coffee and lost in thought. Then I stopped. My face stared back at me from a massive poster in the window. Bold. Elegant. Radiant. The tagline read, "Redefining Beauty." I stood frozen on the sidewalk, people brushing past me. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. That was me. My face. My eyes. The campaign had launched, and I had no idea. I pulled out my phone and called Eli. "Did you know?" "I wanted it to be a surprise," he said, laughing. "Welcome to your new life, Haley." I stared at the poster for another 10 minutes, tears streaming down my face. Strangers probably thought I was crazy. But I didn't care. For years, I'd been told I wasn't enough. And now, my face was on display in one of the most fashionable shopping districts in Chicago. I smiled at my reflection in the glass. "Take that, Barbara." Barbara found out the next day. I was at home when she stormed through the front door, waving a fashion magazine. "Did you pose for this?" she demanded, her face red with fury. I looked at the cover. There I was, in the same campaign Eli had photographed. "Yes," I said calmly. "They said I was exactly what they wanted." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You? A model?" "Apparently." She slammed the magazine on the counter. "This is ridiculous. You're not model material. This has to be some kind of mistake." I met her eyes, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. "It's not a mistake, Barbara. They chose me. On purpose." Her face twisted with rage and disbelief. She'd spent years convincing me I was plain, unremarkable, not good enough. And now, the world was saying the opposite. She didn't know how to process it. "This is embarrassing," she hissed. "For you or for me?" I asked. She didn't answer. She grabbed her purse and left, slamming the door behind her. I smiled. Let her be angry. I was finally free. That night, Colin came home and sided with his mother. You should have told me, he said, pacing the living room. Told you what? That I got a modeling job. That you were going to humiliate my mother. I stared at him, stunned. Humiliate her? How? She's been telling everyone you're just a regular girl. Now you're on magazine covers. She looks like a fool. I laughed bitterly. She called me ugly, Colin. For years. And you never said a word. She was just trying to help you, he said weakly. Help me? By tearing me down. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. You made her look bad. You made us all look bad. That's when I realized the truth. Colin had never seen me either. To him, I was just an extension of his family's image. Not a person. Not his partner. Just someone who was supposed to smile and stay small. That night, I packed a bag and left. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I just walked out the door and didn't look back. For the first time in years, I was choosing myself. And it felt incredible. The following months were a blur of photo shoots, meetings, and contracts. I signed with a modeling agency that specialized in natural beauty campaigns. My face appeared in magazines, online ads, and even a billboard near the highway. I rented a small apartment in the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No one there told me I wasn't enough. I started building a life on my own terms. I learned to enjoy being alone, to sit with my thoughts without drowning in them. My confidence grew with every shoot, every compliment, every paycheck. I wasn't rich, but I was independent. And that was worth more than anything Barbara's family could offer. People started recognizing me on the street. You're the girl from that campaign, they'd say. I'd smile and nod, still getting used to the attention. But it wasn't the fame that mattered. It was the fact that I'd proven to myself I was more than the insults Barbara had thrown at me. I was enough. I'd always been enough. Then the invitation arrived. It was elegant, printed on thick cardstock with gold lettering. Barbara was hosting a charity gala for her fashion foundation. The event was sponsored by the same European brand I modeled for. My stomach dropped. She didn't know yet. She had no idea I was the face of their new campaign. The invitation felt like a trap, but also an opportunity. I could ignore it, stay home, and avoid the drama. Or I could show up and face the woman who'd spent years making me feel worthless. I thought about it for days. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person and let it go. But another part, the part that had been silenced for too long, wanted justice. Not revenge. Just the chance to stand in my truth and let her see what she'd missed. Finally, I decided. I was going to that gala. And I was going to walk in with my head held high, wearing a custom gown designed by the very brand she thought was too good for me. The night of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror wearing the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen. It was custom-made, sent by the brand as a thank you for my work. Simple, elegant, powerful. I barely recognized myself. My hair was styled in soft waves. My makeup was natural but glowing. I looked like the version of myself I'd always wanted to be. Confident. Radiant. Unapologetic. When I arrived at the venue, a historic hotel ballroom dripping with chandeliers and luxury, I felt every eye turn toward me. Whispers followed me as I walked through the crowd. Isn't that the model from the campaign? She's even more stunning in person. Barbara was across the room, holding court with her wealthy friends. She glanced my way, and for a moment, she didn't recognize me. Then her eyes widened. Her smile faltered. I walked past her without saying a word, letting the dress, the confidence, and the whispers speak for me. This was my moment. And she couldn't take it away. The CEO of the brand took the stage, thanking Barbara for hosting the event. Then he smiled. Tonight, I'm thrilled to introduce our new brand ambassador, the woman redefining modern beauty. A spotlight hit the stage. Please welcome Haley. The applause was deafening. I walked up the stairs, my heart pounding, but my steps steady. Cameras flashed. People stood. The CEO handed me the microphone. Haley has brought authenticity and grace to our brand. She represents everything we stand for. I looked out at the crowd. Barbara stood near the front, frozen in shock. Colin was beside her, his face pale. I smiled. Not at them. At myself. Thank you, I said simply. This has been a dream I didn't know I was allowed to have. The applause erupted again. As I left the stage, I walked past Barbara. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away. Not rudely. Just firmly. I didn't owe her a conversation. I didn't owe her anything. I was finally free. Barbara tried to recover. I watched from across the room as she laughed loudly, grabbing the arm of a nearby guest. That's my daughter-in-law, she announced. We always knew she had potential. But her voice was too high, too forced. The CEO overheard and approached her. Oh, you're related to Haley? Barbara nodded eagerly. Yes, we're very close. He smiled politely. That's wonderful. We didn't know she had family here. The implication hung in the air. If they were so close, why hadn't Barbara mentioned me before? Why hadn't she supported me? The crowd murmured. People exchanged glances. Barbara's mask cracked. Her smile froze. Her hands trembled slightly. For years, she'd controlled every room she entered. But tonight, she was the one losing control. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. And as I watched her scramble to save face, I felt something unexpected. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Just peace. She couldn't hurt me anymore. After the gala, Colin called. I almost didn't answer. Haley, please. We need to talk. I sighed. What do you want, Colin? I'm sorry. I should have defended you. My mother, she didn't mean it. She was just trying to help. I laughed softly. She called me ugly, Colin. For years. And you stood by and let it happen. I know. I was wrong. Can we just start over? I looked around my small apartment, at the life I'd built without him. No. Haley, I'm glad you called, I interrupted. Because I meant it when I left. Silence. Take care of yourself, Colin. I hung up. It felt like closing a door I should have locked years ago. He wasn't a bad person. He was just weak. And I didn't have space in my life for people who chose comfort over defending me. I deserved better. I always had. And finally, I was beginning to believe it. The photos from the gala went viral. Social media exploded with headlines. Woman humiliated by in-laws becomes face of major brand. Model confronts mother-in-law at her own event. Barbara became an internet meme. People shared screenshots of her shocked face with captions like, "When karma shows up in custom couture." Her charity lost 2 major sponsors within a week. Her reputation, the thing she valued most, was in ruins. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it or fan the flames. I stayed silent, focusing on my work and my healing. But my silence was powerful. It said everything I'd been too afraid to say for years. I didn't need revenge. The truth had done the work for me. And while Barbara scrambled to rebuild her image, I continued building mine. Not as someone's daughter-in-law. Not as the plain girl who got lucky. Just as Haley. That was enough. Months later, I stood in a dressing room before another major campaign shoot. The mirror reflected a woman I'd grown to love. Same face. Same body. But different eyes. I whispered to my reflection, I was never ugly. I was just unseen. All those years, I'd believed the lie that I wasn't enough because no one told me otherwise. But the truth was I'd always been enough. Barbara's words had never been about me. They were about her insecurities, her need to feel superior. I'd spent too long carrying her shame as if it were mine. But now, I was setting it down. I thought about every woman who'd been made to feel small by someone who should have built them up. Every person told they weren't beautiful or worthy or valuable. I hoped my story could be proof that those voices were wrong. That you don't need permission to see your own worth. That sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see you and build a life where you finally see yourself. 3 months later, I was in a coffee shop when I saw her. Barbara. She looked older, smaller somehow. She was alone, sitting in a corner with a lukewarm cup of tea. Our eyes met. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words never came. For a moment, I felt pity. Then I felt nothing. I smiled. Not cruelly. Just kindly, the way you smile at a stranger. Then I walked past her table and out the door. I didn't need closure from her. I'd found it within myself. As I stepped into the sunlight, I thought about how far I'd come. From the girl who smiled through humiliation to the woman who walked away from it. I'd built a career, a life, and most importantly, a sense of peace. Barbara had tried to make me small, but all she did was show me how strong I could be. And as I walked down the street, confident and free, I realized something. When people can't control you anymore, they call you names. But the moment you rise, they remember your name. And mine was Haley. Always had been. Always would be.